Welcome everyone to the Parenting After Trauma panel discussion. This panel discussion came about as we were really thinking about how we wanted to participate in Resilience Week, celebrating here in the state of Virginia for its third year. And so we really thought about a conversation that we wanted to have between parents and caregivers that is centered around the unique experiences of parenting after trauma. As we know, the pandemic changed the way of life for many parents. It brought an uptick in community violence, additional financial and familial challenges. And so, with all of those things and more in mind, we hope that this conversation will serve as a reminder that we do have a collective role and duty in supporting our families. So without further ado, let's start by introducing our panelists. And so I'll go around and just call on each one of you to introduce yourself. Again, as we stated off screen, just introduce who you are, what you would like for us to know about yourselves. Feel free to share how many children you have and their ages. And I'm going to start from the left side of my screen, and I'm going to call on Roscoe. If you could just please introduce yourself, my friend.
Hey, so I am Douglas Powell / Roscoe Burnhams. I am a poet. I'm a teaching artist. I'm the first poet laureate for Richmond, Virginia. As a teaching artist, I do a lot of creative writing in order to process trauma, using poetry as a therapeutic process, things of that nature, how to find resilience through writing. So that's a large part of my work. I am a father of 2 and 1 on the way.
Okay,
thanks.
Congratulations.
So I have a 15-year-old and I have a 5-year-old.
That's awesome. Congratulations. And thank you so much for that introduction. We're going to go to Vincent. Vincent, please introduce yourself.
I'm still over here blown away by Roscoe news. My bad. Hold on. Congratulations, Roscoe. But yeah, y'all, this is Vincent White right here. Very, very much honored to be here and be on this panel with such esteemed people as well. I am a foster care worker during the day. So family service specialist or home study specialist. And with that position, I train prospective foster parents on grief and loss. I take them through the process of getting certified to become foster parents. I evaluate their homes. We talk about a lot of trauma and all sorts of things in between their very extensive home study process and interviewing process. Outside of that, I do a lot of events around the city, mainly socially impactful events, been doing those for over 10, 15 years. I'm an author of the book, Finding Chris, My Father, and we had a traveling stage play for about 4 or 5 years for the same, based upon that book. And that book is about my life story, dealing with fatherlessness, growing up with an incarcerated father that I thought was my father to find out that he wasn't, and went on a journey to find my father. And that just spawned a big movement about fatherhood to where I've been a fatherhood advocate for the last maybe 10, 15 years now, teaching fatherhood classes, assisting with the elders that have fatherhood classes that were already here before me, and helping thousands of fathers around the city just to be able to just navigate their presence in fatherhood as well as in the legal system through fatherhood. I have a son that's 16 years old that I have full custody of, and that I went through about 14 to 15 year ongoing custody battle with him. So I'm able to speak to the personal experience of that as well as the professional side.
Thank you so much for sharing all these things about you, Vincent. I really want to actually get my hands on that book. And so thank you so much for sharing that and for all the work that you have done and you continue to do in both your personal and professional lives. We really appreciate you.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Sandra, please introduce yourself.
My name is Sandra Laws, and I am from Richmond, Virginia, and I'm a mother of 2. I have a 18-year-old freshman at ODU, and I have a 15-year-old freshman at Thomas Jefferson High School. And I do, awesome. I don't know, I be everywhere.
Absolutely. Well, we Thank you so much for being here and just appreciate all that you do and look forward to hearing so much more from you in this conversation. And now we'll go to Terrence. Terrence, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Terrence Doctor. Can you guys hear me? Okay. My name is Terrence Doctor. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 3. My oldest is 14. My second oldest is 4. And my last one is in heaven. Unfortunately, recently just passed away last year. So I'm a father of 3 kids. I am the author. I'm an author. I'm a community and youth advocate. I'm also a program director of my own nonprofit called Blueprint to Manhood, which is a mentoring program for young men ages 7 to 17 to basically teach them life skills while walking into their manhood. So extremely active in the community as well. So I appreciate being on this panel as well.
Absolutely, and we appreciate you so much. Definitely condolences on that loss. I imagine that there are probably many people, if not on this panel, but definitely tuning in who probably can relate in some way to that type of loss. And so we just thank you for being so open and sharing that with us. That is something that is really, it is a trauma. And now we will have Tamisha. Tamisha, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tamisha Scott Crenshaw. I am a mother of 3 kids. I have a 9-year-old, I have a 4-year-old, and I have a 1-year-old. I grew up in the Richmond, Virginia, the Churchill area. I do my free time, I do hair. I have a business, Everlasting Styles, and I'm in the process of finishing up my book that I'm writing about my life. And I write poems, things about myself and my kids.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure meeting you, Tamisha, for the first time, and looking forward to that book and all the things that you will be putting out into the universe over this, however, that timeline takes. So thank you for sharing that. And last but certainly not least, you're welcome. Last but certainly not least, we have Chris. Chris, please introduce yourself.
Hi, yes, I'm Chris George. I am from Petersburg, but I've been in Henrico probably about over 20 years now. I am a behavior support facilitator for Henrico County Public Schools. I have 3 children. I have a 11-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 25-year-old, and I have 2 grandkids as well, but they're over in California, so they're on the West Coast. So, but I'm also honored to be here with you all today.
Absolutely, and we just thank you so much, Chris, for being here and just sharing yourself. Thank each of you for being here and sharing yourself in this space. I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Olivia Wilson, and I serve as a trauma-informed parent engagement coordinator with Greater Richmond SCAN. And so I will be the facilitator, the moderator for today. And so without further ado, we want to get this conversation started as we just have so much in store for us to talk about. And so to get us started, as it is obvious, you are all parents and caregivers on the line today. But when we talk about parents and parenting, we know that parenting looks different, right? For each individual. So I want to invite you all to kind of share with us how would you describe your parenting style and how has it changed over time? And this is open to anyone. If anyone wants to be brave and take the lead.
I can go first.
Thank you for being brave and being brave. Thank you, Sandra.
You're welcome. I guess my parenting style is open and honest at all times. And I'm gonna say I started it with my children at an early age, even with having to tell my son that his father was there at the age of 3. So always open and honest, being upfront, At one point, I used to be very hard on them if they didn't reach their goals, but now I'm more laid back, and just giving them all the resources that they need to be able to be successful. And if they don't reach their goal, we're gonna work on it again, or we may work on something else. So always open and honest to my children, whether it's something that's going on throughout time, whether we're struggling with something in the household, or if we might not be able to participate in something. So always being open and honest with my kids.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? How would you describe your parenting style, and has it always been that way, or how has it changed over the years?
I'll jump in real quick. So I had my daughter. I had my daughter when I was about 19. Well, I just turned 20, so I was fairly young, and still trying to figure it out. And originally I thought I was gonna kind of parent the same way my mother did. My mother was a little hard on me, you know what I mean? Like, very stern, very traditional, like parent and child dynamic. Over time, I learned, like, one, it made me a little more rebellious than it probably, could have. And so I'm trying not to do that with my kids now. So to kind of, to piggyback on what was said earlier, like a lot of open and honest communication. I like to think of my parenting style now as adaptive, because my kids are very different. They're very unique individuals. And so what my daughter needs isn't necessarily what my son needs, and vice versa, just because they're their own humans. And whether that's, academic things, or whether it's quality time or whatever, like their love languages are different, their communication styles are different. So, you got to learn your kid and kind of pivot well to what works best for them. So, it's just been like, it's kind of changed. It's changed over the years, but it's also continuing to change as they get older.
Yeah, I would agree with Roscoe, and in the same sense, I think just being adaptive to like all the different personalities of your kids. And of course, like I have kind of this wide gap. So I definitely parent different now than I did with my oldest. I was very much like that tiger mom, very high expectations, I was like a strict disciplinarian. And she was such a sweet child, and I really tried to toughen her up, because I was like, she's not gonna make it, right? So um, that saying, it's like, when you know better, you do better. So like my daughter will tell people all the time, like, she's traumatized by her childhood, because I really was very, very hard on her. But in my mind, I felt like if she can handle me being hard with her, then she can handle anything else in this world. But that did come at a disadvantage for her. So I think just really kind of understanding more that the old school way of thinking, where when a child is asking questions, it's not them questioning you, but just really just being inquisitive, right? They just really do want to know. They're not challenging what you're saying. So I kind of went from this, you do it because I say you do it kind of thing, or you can't because I say you can't. Whereas now, I really try to explain why, so that they can understand where I'm coming from, opposed to feeling like I'm not being fair, or, so like now the lines of communication are open where they weren't before. So a lot of growth, I would say. And again, I was also, I was a teen mom. So me and my oldest, we kind of grew up together, so to speak. So it was, a lot of growing pains. But, I hate to say it, but my younger two kind of benefit from all of that.
Yeah, I was going to say I think that's a pretty, a real and honest assessment, right, of the changes in your parenting style, even for, Sandra and Roscoe, as you all shared. And I did just want to add a real quick follow-up to that, to the three people who shared, and this is, again, open to anyone, but looking at what you described your parenting style to be today, how do you feel like that has now, how do you feel like that is paying off, if you will, or what is that response that you're receiving from your children, and to let you know that this is working?
I'm gonna jump on it real quick. So my story is somewhat similar to Roscoe. I found out I was a father at a young age, around 20. So for me, I didn't tell anyone this, but I was extremely scared, mainly because I grew up in a household where there was no father present. So I second guessed myself a lot. I didn't think that I was going to be a good father. So, and then when you tack that on, along with the fact that at 20 years old, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So tacking in everything as far as me not knowing what I wanted to do with life, and also understanding or learning that I'm a father and being a father, I just knew that I have a child in the way. I need to change my ways, but trying to understand who I was as a person. Because see, my son, with him being 14, he saw a lot, and he saw a lot of my moments of I don't knows or just kind of winging it, right? So parents, I think, kind of where we are now, like a lot of things that we do in certain instances, we may kind of wing it a little bit or do it the best of our abilities, which is fine. But at 20, I had no idea who I was. I had no understanding of who I was as a person. So my parenting style kind of grew as I more so understood who I was as a person. Once I started finding out who I was, I've always kind of been very direct, very very adaptive. I've always been that person, but it's different when you're doing it versus for yourself versus when you're doing it for your children. Understanding that they're your priority. So as my parenting style grew and I had to understand of what I wanted to do in my life, I would say it became a lot easier. I've never really been the spanking type parent. Normally my voice just gets my kids right in line. A stare kind of gets them. But I try to not be the spanking parent because, as we said earlier, I want my children to be able to understand why. I have a 4-year-old right now. All she asks is why. Every time I tell her something, then she hits me back with well, daddy, actually, I don't know where she gets that word from, but she's in the well actually phase, right? So every time I say something, she has something to say back. And I welcome it. Me and my queen, we welcome it because we want her to understand the why we're doing something. Because I don't really want to be the parent that just I'll tell you to do something, you don't do it, and then I just go grab a belt or something. Like to me, that doesn't really solve anything. Like I grew up in that era of having to go get my Switch off the tree and then hand it to my grandmother and stuff like that. But simple questions as far as like why. Like sometimes, asking questions to get understanding. And so my parenting style pretty much grew as I learned myself more. So it kind of just placed me in an environment where being willing to be able to listen to my children. As a parent, I don't have all of, and I'm not going to always be right. So there are many times where my 4-year-old might say something, I'm like, yeah, you know what, she's right. And then the thing about it is, like, I'll tell her, or I'll tell my son too, if I do something wrong, I'll say, you know what, my bad, I'm sorry. Accountability. I want to teach my children accountability. When you're wrong, it's okay to be honest and open and say, you know what, I have to show my children how to be honest. I have to show my children how to be open. I have to show them accountability because I, along with their mothers, are the first example that they see daily. So,
Terrence, I apologize to my kids all the time.
yeah,
All the
have
time.
to. Accountability is huge. I don't want to be a part of the generation that doesn't let young people speak or that doesn't value my children's ideas. I don't want to be that person. So being able to say, you know what, I'm sorry. And that's when you know that you're kind of grown, right? When you can actually admit that you're sorry and then keep it moving. Like every disagreement doesn't have to turn into an argument or a spanking or something like that. Using each moment as a teaching lesson to kind of learn, engage, and like, others said, like adapt. Like my children are so different. My son is he's me, but he loves school. I didn't love school growing up. I'm in school right now and I can't say that I love it, but me teaching my kids the importance of education, I can't teach them the importance of education if I gave up on mine. So my son is the main reason why he inspired me to go back to school. So, he's just completely different. So he just does things differently. He plays more video games than I did when I was his age. When I was his age, I was out in the streets. He's playing Roblox and whatever other stuff is out. I don't really know, but I try to learn, but it's adapting. So
I appreciate your response, Terrence, and I know we want to get more voices in, but you really kind of help lead us into the next question that I have, which is, you know, thinking about your parenting styles, how that was, how was it, what was it like to parent while trying to navigate your own inner work? So kind of going back to what Terrence was saying, like what, you know, him not knowing who he was, you know, at the time of his first child, and what growing was like, and how parenting evolved and changed over time. But I want to invite you all into kind of that part of the dialogue. What was it like parenting while trying to navigate your own inner work and healing from some of the past hurts or past traumas or adverse situations that you can recall? What was it like to parent while trying to navigate all that?
I can go. I can say from my experience, I had my daughter, I think I was like 24, 25 or something like that. So I was, I didn't know what I was getting into, because I didn't have a mother, and I didn't have a whole lot of women around me to show me the right way, the things to do. So I was so focused on what I needed as a child, and not my daughter. But as you know, she got older, I started realizing, okay, she's nothing like me. She's nothing like me. So I have to go off of who she is and not what I needed as a child. So, and it goes for the other, my second child, he's my stepson, but I still have to do the same with them two, because I can't go off of, oh, I didn't have a mother, or I didn't, you know, have a father. And I was little, I had to go off of them. So it's a struggle, but with the guidance, with, you know, with my inner circle and, you know, prayer and writing and stuff like that, really helping me, healing me, and they heal me as well, because I didn't have the communication that I have with my daughter. She's 9 years old, and it's like, what the world? Like, you know, like you becoming a young, you know, a young woman, not a young woman, but you know, she's growing up into this beautiful girl. So it's just like, my kids is healing me, and the people that surrounded me is healing me, working through my trauma.
That's powerful. Thank you so much, Tamisha.
And I'll piggyback off of her. I was sitting here like listening to everybody, trying to figure out like how transparent do I want to be, because I'm used to being very transparent. So I'm gonna start off and I'm gonna continue with that theme, and I'm gonna say something I never said publicly. So I don't know why I'm choosing to do it now, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it now. So look at Roscoe like, what is about to be? So when I was 25 years old, I had my son Jordan. But what most people don't know is that I had two girls pregnant at the same time when I was 25, and I had two kids on the way. And I wasn't in a relationship with either one of them. And my son's mom now, I ended up getting in a relationship with her. And so I'm thinking about Terrence when he was speaking about the fear he had. And I know Terrence's background from he and I doing events before, and he knows mine. And so everything everybody said, I got a combination of that in me. When I was 25, I was very much like not mature when it came to fathering or parenting or anything. Came from a broken home, came from an incarcerated father that I visited weekly, you know, no male figures that were present. The only marriage that I saw was my grandfather and grandmother. And I don't know how healthy that was, but they were together. And then I think I told you, I found out my father wasn't even my father, you know, so 16 years of visiting an incarcerated father to find out he was not my father. And I carried his name too. And so I ended up changing my name, and I mean, it's a whole process with that book I was telling you about. And so anyway, when I found out I was having the first child, which was my son Jordan, I was nervous and very excited. Same with Terrence. Like I was like, okay, well, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I haven't really had any positive male figures or healthy relationships to follow. But I always tell people when I speak that it's either going, in a situation like that, it's either going to make you like run away and be like a horrible father, or it's going to make you step up and be an amazing father. And I like to think that I ended up stepping up, being an amazing father to my son. And so what happened is, unfortunately, the other young lady ended up losing our child, and it was in January. and my son Jordan was born March 5th. And so I was preparing for 2 kids. And so I had like, my family was going crazy. Like I was looked at like I was the worst person in the world, at the time. And I was preparing for 2. And so I was like really terrified, but ended up having my son Jordan. And I ended up stepping up and becoming a great father, becoming very hands-on, because I knew all the feelings that I went through growing up. And I couldn't see me allowing my son to go through any of those feelings, from the confusion to the abandonment to the hatred that I had for the person I called my father. There was so many emotions that I dealt with and was still dealing with at 25, because I didn't find my biological father to the age of 27. And so I was still dealing with all of that, and I didn't want to project that on my son, and I wanted to just give him the best life he could possibly have. Now, what helped me with that, I think is one of the questions too, what helped me with that is that my village has always been so powerful, from being raised by 3 strong Black women, my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother, to also just like, I have a lot of people in the community. Like I'm born and raised in Richmond, between Southside and Chesterfield, growing up the whole time. And I got elders in the community that's amazing, from me being at the Boys and Girls Club on Robinson Street for many years, to when I got into fatherhood life, the elders that run the fatherhood programs found me. I don't know how they found me, but they found me, I think, due to my story. And they embraced me and just taught me how to be a better father. Like I used to not be able to control my anger and stuff like that, and they just taught me how to like manage my emotions a little bit better. My faith definitely reared me. Grew up in the church, even though I didn't act like it all the time. I grew up in the church, and just I think that foundation really helped me to be a strong parent for my son, and just remembering all the things I was dealing with and still dealing with, but I was also maturing in the process. And so as I got older, like my life completely turned around to where my son was my #1 priority, and I had so many other people looking up to me or looking towards me because they saw my journey publicly. Like my journey, if any of y'all follow me, it's been public, being in court like every year, 4 or 5 times a year, but also being on large platforms, like going to New York and being on Good Morning America for my story. And so it's like thousands and millions of people were seeing my story play out, of me dealing with a lack of father growing up, to now becoming this parent, simultaneously having to be a father publicly and privately, and trying to mature like in that process. And also dealing with some healing that I didn't know I needed to deal with. I thought I just had to deal with the father wound that I had from not having my father. What I didn't know is that there was this wound that was developing and growing each year from going through this constant tug of war and this legal and custody battle. And I didn't know how bad that affected me, and it still affects me. And until I started talking to other fathers as a guest speaker and realized they all were dealing with the same thing. And I had to look inward and say, how's this affecting me? I was trying to be like this super dad, and I was doing a great job, but it was really affecting me a lot. And me and my son are always been extremely close, even in the midst of like all the turmoil that may get presented my way. And I like to think, kind of to the first question, I like to think that I'm a very flexible, adaptable parent. I like to say relatable, because like I've done everything. Like any scenario he brings to me, I've already done it like 3 times over. But what I also noticed is that I'm very structured by nature. And I didn't find out until maybe 2 years ago that my son was scared of me. And I didn't know it until we started going to therapy. And so the therapist was asking him questions about us, and I was attending therapy with him. And he said all these great things about us because we're like twins. I mean, we do everything together. He said all these great things about us, but the therapist asked him a question about something with fear, and he just looked like he did not want to answer in front of me. And so I stepped out, and when I stepped back in, the therapist said he was scared of me, and he said it like a few times. And it's not like I've ever put hands on him is all. Like he told therapists that's never happened. It's kind of like what Terrence said. I could just say something or whatever, and he just would have this fear of him. And so I grew up to where I was afraid of the people raising me too, but that's not the greatest thing to be. You don't want your kids to be afraid of you, so we got to like kind of unlearn those things. And I didn't mean to do it anyway, but I might have played a part in accepting that he was scared and that being okay with me in the sense of trying to avoid him from going down this bad path and being able to reel him back easily. But you know, in this day and age we're in now, I don't want no child of mine to be afraid of me. And so we started working through those things and basically just letting him know that it's a safe space. He can always talk to me. At first I couldn't accept it because the irony of it was all his friends and everybody that knows him says, oh man, your dad's so great. All his friends tells him how great his dad is, and they want to hang with me, all this stuff. And he hangs with me all the time, but just that fear, it really hurt my heart to hear that, you know. And I was trying to figure out where that even came from. And so we just learned to like have a safe space and just talk to each other openly. And now we're doing much better. Like we're much closer. We can talk about more things, and he don't have to have a fear of any type of pushback, anything like that. So my parenting style has adapted, continues to adapt often, as well as me going through my healing of dealing with my childhood traumas, as well as the ongoing healing that I'm trying to still receive from dealing with the ongoing legal battles that continue to plague me and plague us.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Vincent. And like some of the themes that I'm kind of hearing come up, and this question is still on the table for anyone else that wants to add to, but the themes that I'm hearing coming up is really as you all became parents and recognizing the wounds that were still open and fresh and still, infected, I should say, you realized that you didn't want to project what you felt like you didn't receive or what had happened to you, and how to, you didn't want to project that onto your children. And so you were able to start thinking about how to shift and reframe and change perspectives of really identifying what it is, who your child is, right? And how to best meet their needs, while also then learning from your children about how you needed to heal, do that inner work. And so like, those are some really powerful themes that I'm hearing. And thank you so much for you, for also offering how your parenting style has changed, and being able to share that story about receiving the news, hearing from your son that he was afraid of you, and not because of you harmed him in any intentional way or harmed him at all, but that you said your approach caused a fear in him, and how you've been able to accept that and not get defensive about it. But though it hurt you, you've been open to accepting that that is what he felt, and how you all are working through that. Again, how has it been, what has it been like to parent while working through your own internal challenges in your healing process? Anyone else want to add to that question before we keep moving forward?
Chris,
Well,
you want me muted first? Did you want to go?
Chris?
Well, I was just gonna make a quick comment. Like for me, I didn't even realize I needed to heal. So I wasn't healing in my parenting. I was just processing how I needed to process and raising how I needed to raise. So to be honest, it wasn't until my daughter started her healing that I realized that I also needed to heal. So this is something like really that has just happened maybe in the last, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 years, to be honest. So it's, but I love that I can learn from my kids. I love that, like we can have, because at first I was a little defensive. I'm like, why are you putting on Instagram that you had a traumatized childhood? And, but we had to be able to have that conversation so that I can explain, like, this is why these things happen. So, again, like those open lines of communication come in, and that's healing in itself, to be able to talk about like how, I can't take away that that's how she felt. I probably did. Like I said, I was tough. At one time I had somebody call me a militant mom. I was really tough on her. So, again, it had to be brought to my attention. I knew that there were things I was dealing with, but I felt like that's just my life. I have to suck it up and keep it moving, right? So like, I'm glad that I was able to learn from my child that I need to heal, right? In her healing process. So I'm just grateful for that in itself, because it is eye-opening and it's painful, but God, it makes so much sense, you know, and now it makes sense why I do things the way that I do, or why I think the way that I do, or why I handle situations the way that I do. It makes sense to me now, right? Because nothing was wrong with me back then, right? It was everybody else, right? So
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Chris.
So I'll jump in real quick. So to kind of pick up where Chris left off, I had so there was two things I had to realize, particularly when raising my daughter. She's the oldest, and I had to realize that the way that I was parenting early in her childhood was a trauma response to how I was raised. Right. So even with like the no spanking thing, right? Like I don't beat my kids, no belts get taken out. You know what I mean? Like I'm a parent that will fuss. I'm a parent that will lecture. But that's about the most they get from me. But sometimes like that can be kind of like, my daughter's really timid. She's really shy. She's an introvert, and she's non-confrontational. So even me fussing at her about chores or fussing at her about grades is a lot for her. You know what I mean? So like I had to tailor how we had conversations and how we discuss certain things. You know what I mean? It's more of a kitchen table style now. You know what I mean? Like we come in with solutions. We talk about things. It's not me just wagging my finger at her like, come on, you got to study, da 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 da. Because I realized that sometimes I was coming off really harsh or really confrontational. I do fine with confrontation. None of that bothers me. But I also, my response to confrontation is a little different because of where my base was. Like if I popped off at my mom, I was gonna get slapped. Like it was no question about it. The belt was coming out, or my mom would give me the hands. Like it was, and she wasted no time. But that was the base for me. So like anything that wasn't that was fine with me, right? But my daughter doesn't know any of that. Her normal is, you know, dad will fuss at me. You know, he might, you know, like, so like. I was doing this kind of comparison thing. So sometimes I felt like my daughter was ungrateful growing up because I'm like, you don't understand how good you got it. Back in my day, I would have had to go out and cut a branch off a tree and you know what I mean? Like that's, you know, because I'm comparing her to what I knew, but she doesn't know that. You know, I mean, her normal is very different. So I had to understand that. And then like I came in with so many like, you know, preconceived notions about what parenting should look like, and then didn't really understand that one, what I experienced was a lot of trauma, and that I was parenting like around that, like I was parenting around that trauma. So it took like Chris said, like I didn't even know I needed to heal. You know what I mean? I didn't even know that there was things I had to heal from. Not that my mother was a bad parent, because she really wasn't. My mom was great actually, but she was also just doing what she knew too. You know what I mean? She needed to heal, but she didn't know that she needed to heal either. And so a lot of it is about breaking that. It's breaking those cycles of abandonment, of neglect, of, you know, of kind of operating inside of your trauma, and then paying attention to your kid, because if they are experiencing something that is traumatic for them, like how do you start that healing process, and how do you start unpacking that now while they're still like young and malleable and able to move forward without attaching all that trauma to their adult life, where it can show up in their partnerships, you know, in their love life or in their parenting style later, should they ever have kids. So it was a long process. And so, yeah, with a whole lot of therapy, a whole lot of conversations. Now, like, we're a family that talks about everything. Nothing is left on the table. And being very open. Like, my daughter suffers from depression. My daughter suffers from depression and suicide ideation, just like me. I was actually very suicidal when I found out that my ex was pregnant and that we were going to be parents. And so, like, that was scary. I didn't even know if I was going to stick around long enough to even be a parent. So having to kind of like deal with all that emotionally, and then now have this kind of new like thirst for life because I want to be a good dad. Like there's a lot of emotions kind of happening at the same time. So like I'm being hyper vigilant, and I'm being like present because I want to be a good father, because I didn't get any male role models in my life, but I'm also still struggling with all these mental health issues. Then to have a teenager who is now kind of operating in the same space, and also dealing with similar mental health issues, it's still really scary. It requires a lot of patience and grace on both ends. I can't remember who said it, but it was like your kid, when you have a kid that young, they watch you grow up too. And my daughter has been really vocal about that. We ended up doing like a podcast about kind of something similar to this. And she was like, he wasn't really sure of himself when I was younger, and I could see that. But now he's way more confident, and he feels like he has a better grasp on everything. So it was wild to hear her, be able to, kind of see it from her lens. And even when I thought I had it together, I didn't. And your kids see that, you know what I mean? Your kids are bright, your kids are observant. And so in everything that you're doing, they're watching it. And so it makes you really cognizant about how you move forward, and if you want to be a healthy parent, you're going to have to kind of adapt to what your kid needs then. And so we become really communicative over the years, just about everything, just being very, very open. Even about my past with dealing with depression and dealing with suicide and so on and so forth. That she realized that she's not alone in this, because that's the struggle sometimes when dealing with depression. And then how to navigate that, right? How do you find a good therapist? What do you look for? What are the other options? Do you need antidepressants? Whatever the tools are, you know what I mean? But as a parent, I need to be informed as well, so that I can make sure that we're finding all the resources that she needs and I need in order to be the best versions of ourselves.
Absolutely. I thank you so much for sharing that. And that is so key. When you said, everything you said was very key, but the thing that really kind of just stuck with me just now is that, children are very observant, right? And so even if they didn't at the time knew how to kind of put language to whatever they were absorbing from you, or what they were observing and what this looked like, as they're growing older and as you're having these conversations, they can start to put some language to really what that felt like or what that experience was like. And I think that connects even back to what you were saying, Chris, how like your daughter saying, yeah, I had a traumatic childhood. And you was like, what? She may not have been able to put words to that.
Yeah, right. Like, you had a good life. But again, and I was a disciplinarian. She, she got her fair share of spankings, But, even just to touch back on the fact that we have to get away from don't do as I do as I say mindset, because at the end of the day, we are their first teachers. They're learning from us. They learn how to handle situations by watching how we handle situations, right? So it is very important, just for us to be role models. So if we're doing the work to heal, like, these kids are going through a lot. We can't say that they're just kids. They don't have anything to worry about. These kids have a lot to worry about. They have a lot of pressure on them. Especially like we didn't have the pressure of social media, right? That just puts another level of insecurity and, like just so many different issues that come along with that. So they struggle through a lot. So I think it's just great, again, like you said, just being really hyper vigilant about staying on top of like our kids' needs, right? Listening to what they have to say. Like, we can't silence them. We have to, even if we don't like what we hear, we have to allow them to say what they need to say, because we have to teach them how to advocate for themselves, even if it's against what we believe, because they're still going to think for themselves. They're still going to have their ideas about, how things should be. They're not going to like the way that we do everything. And that's okay.
Agreed. Tomisha and Vincent had really started talking to us about what has been successful in helping them in their healing from their personal traumas, and just wanted to, invite anyone else to maybe speak to what supports helped you be successful in your healing, in the healing of your personal traumas, whether it was something you're still going through now, or at any point of your parenting journey. And I know we're watching the time, so if anybody just again wants to kind of speak to that, what supports helped you?
I can say.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Say, like with losing my kid's father, spiritually, and like with my circle that was around me at the time, they helped me heal. But as life went on, they started to disappear. I kind of used my kids as my main focus, and so my kids kind of helped me heal. So it was more so I need to make sure that I take care of them and that I'm raising them properly. And so my kids were kind of like my main focus up until I'm gonna say 2015, when my mom died. Then I needed like some professional help to be able to help me with techniques, to be able to maneuver through life, because they kind of had like set me back. And so I had different kind of techniques like throughout life trying to heal. And I'm still healing to this day. And I'm also still learning how to parent. Parenting is very trial and error. I learned every single day. My 18-year-old put in a group chat that I have gotten soft over the years because of the way that I am parenting my 15-year-old. But I had to let him know that parenting is trial and error. I'm learning new things. I'm learning to listen, to be able to help either one of my children. So it's trial and error. And I'm thankful for the resources that I have found, whether it's through a professional, family and friends. And I always like connect myself with people that will help me out in life, and also my children.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
I say all the time, your first kid is your test kid. You you're just trying to figure it out. I apologize to my daughter all the time. I'm like, your brother's gonna have a better life. I'm so sorry. I tried my best with you, okay, but I learned a lot.
Yes. Terrence wanted to share too.
So right now in this season of parenting, out of all of the traumatic experiences I had growing up, this season for me is by far the toughest. Like this season of parenting, like I've never had a season of so much hurt and pain just based off of, the past year. So, my wife got pregnant. We had our second child together. My daughter was born on March 31st and unfortunately passed away 3 days later on April 3rd of last year. So essentially, it is extremely hard to parent Earthside children knowing that you have one that's missing. So there's always a feeling of, I'm forgetting something. Wait, somebody's supposed to be here. How do you parent? And I remember like the day after my daughter passed, like around that time, my oldest son had like a track meet. And he had did really good. My son stays in another state, so we do a lot of talking, via like FaceTime and stuff like that. COVID really messed up a lot of stuff, seeing us in person and stuff like that. But so we speak a lot through FaceTime. So I remember him his mom sending me the video of him doing really good at track. But I remember I was just so emotionally detached because I struggled in that moment, because it's like, how do I celebrate one child achieving something so good while I'm in the midst of losing and having to now, sign funeral papers over to go bury this one. So it's been extremely tough, by far the worst pain ever. So one of the things that I'm learning now as a father is to more so give myself grace, because I'm grieving. So I'm trying to learn how to grow around the grief, because to parent with children that are still alive versus one that's not here, it's a constant reminder of what isn't here. The household is still filled with bassinets and Pampers, of expectations of her being here with us. So everything that we did was like, I'm in a couple support groups now. So the support groups have really helped me a lot, because for the first time in my life, I'm having to address my feelings. Because I feel like I owe it to myself and I owe it to my family to be extremely, to acknowledge my feelings. So if it's a day that I don't feel okay, it's okay for me to say I don't feel okay. It's okay for me to not have the answers. It's okay for me to be angry. It's okay for me to stream, because for the first time, but before that, I was just pretty good at just sweeping it under the rug. Like, it is what it is. Life happens, but for the first time, because the grief is just it's so overwhelming. Like I can't put it. I can't hold it all together. So support groups have helped me a lot, because it just helps me to learn different methods on how to grieve as a parent, but still try to be present in these moments with them, which that can be, of course, a challenge within itself, but it has taught me a lot. Like, it's okay to be weak. Like I tell people, like from the day she passed away on April 3rd of last year, I literally cried every day up until like February 17th of this year. So I'm talking about, like, I've literally cried every day at some point, right? So that's a different, like I'm still learning me, especially in this new season. Like I've never experienced this level of grief. I've never felt so emotionally broken. Like I've never seen myself cry, obviously. I think the longest I cried before this was maybe like 2 weeks straight. So now this level of crying for months straight every day and then still having to go to work. Obviously, that's the hard part. Then you have to go to work. I had to bury my daughter on Monday. The following week, I had to go back to work. So now it's just the goal of just trying to wrap my mind around being a parent. But support groups help me a lot. Obviously, people in my village, like Vincent said earlier, like having a safe space, that's huge. People that allow for me to talk to my daughter and they actually talk about my daughter and they actually listen. That helps. Just being present with my kids. My daughter, she talks about her little sister all the time. And my son, he's just so smart, man. I know where he gets it from, but I don't know where he gets it from. It's just he's just extraordinarily smart. So both of them they are my driving force, but just trying to get to a space where it's extremely hard, being honest, just trying to parent, knowing that one isn't here. But I would say support groups. I said all of that to say support groups.
We appreciate you for saying all of that for sure. And we know that is still very heavy for you. And we felt that heaviness. And we just want to let you know how much we truly appreciate you being everybody, but definitely you being transparent with sharing with us, even in, like you said, still in this process of grieving and learning how to work through that grief. And I just want to check in with you and with everyone right now. How are you all feeling? So, the honest space. We've been talking about transparency and being honest, and Terrence just told us that being okay with not feeling good. And so, how's everyone doing right now?
I'm feeling okay. I can be better, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Torrance made me realize that I already know that I've been holding on to because I have multiple deaths. I had multiple deaths up in my life, but Torrance just made me realize that even though my twin brother, he got killed almost 13 years ago, he wasn't my child, but I took care of my brother. And Terrence made me realize that still how to live life of taking care of your kids. Even like I said, even though that was my twin brother, it's still hard. Of taking care of kids and being married and trying to move forward. So it's still hard taking care of. I didn't want to cry, but so it just made me realize that it is hard of moving forward, knowing that you something's supposed to be here with you, and it's not. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you for even acknowledging, even, that your twin brother who passed, he may not have been your child, but you cared for him. So you were still a caregiver, because this space is for parents and caregivers. So there's going to be parents and caregivers of maybe people who may not, they didn't conceive or have birth or fathered or mothered in the biological sense. But there are people who you still have been provided care for. And so everything that you all have shared, I believe is helping each and every one of us right here in this space and everyone who's tuning in. And I know that we are at time, but I don't feel like we should end on right at this note, because I feel like it is probably very helpful for us to still talk about what type of supports do you feel like you still might need right now in this moment. So as you've talked about your supports, that has been helping you be successful with parenting through the healing of past trauma or any type of personal trauma, what do you feel like you still need today?
For
Yeah, I'll
myself,
speak. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Laws.
I just was gonna say for myself and my children, I'm gonna say grievance counseling. That's something that I wish I would have gotten 15 years ago. That might be something that me and my children might sit down and need to have. Like I still try to incorporate their father in their lives, from home videos to the thousands of pictures that we have, the memories that I have, and like to try to keep the memories from like family and friends. Like I even started like books and got people to write in the books. But I think grievance counseling may help. Up until I would say a couple months ago, my daughter said she never thought about not having a father because he died 17 hours after she was born. So she was like, she never really thought about how it felt to like have a father or have a father in her life up until a couple months ago. So I think grievance counseling and maybe a little bit more techniques on trying to raise a teenage daughter that is kind of like my mini me, but I used to be shy, and she is not shy at all. She is total opposite. She will say what she want to say and not be afraid. So yeah, some grievance counseling and maybe some parenting techniques.
I would say, I know I mentioned like therapy earlier, but I want to clarify, like the therapy that's been happening is initially for my son. And so just me being a supportive father, I go with him, and sometimes we'll do a complete session, me and him and the therapist. Sometimes the therapist will have me step out and my son will speak. And so I support him by bringing him there and speaking in there, and coming back in there to follow up if needed or if asked for. But to answer your question, I just think that I think it'll be beneficial for me to get like my own therapist and be able to talk through some things, because not really for the childhood stuff. Like I do think that I have healed for the childhood stuff, but it's the constant like tug of war and battle stuff. Like I talk to a lot of fathers, and while I'm very helpful to them, like talking to them and then dealing with my own stuff just has made me realize like how hurt I am. Like granted, like I'll celebrate when I get full custody, which I've had for some years, but like the interim pieces really affect me. And the therapist has told me numerous times that they'll say Jordan is fine, but when he's in the midst of a tug of war is when he's really like bothered, and he could get depressed and things like that. And that harms me to hear that, knowing there's not much that I can do about that happening. And my son's witnessed like domestic violence on the other parent's side, and he's dealt with some like coercion and things like that, and many other things I can list that really have bothered him. And he voiced to me, but which in turn, that's why custody ended up coming to me, some neglect and things like that. But he hasn't really gotten the healing for it because he was trying to protect mom, and so he doesn't bring it up a lot. Like he's told me, but hasn't told other parties. And so it bothers me that he kind of holds that stuff in and tries to be this tough young kid, and may have some like anger built up inside him. And so just even watching him deal with that, and then also with me, why I think I need therapy, just because like I noticed that the tug of war was taking a real toll on me. Like, and I can take a lot, but I get secondary trauma a lot through my job, and so I'm dealing with kids and parents every day that have the worst scenarios, like kids being, just harmed and killed, and parents doing things to them, abuse and neglect, etc. I deal with that all day, and I'm on call all the time to also deal with the tug of war, custody battles, as well as like you never truly knowing what the outcome is going to be. Like, even though I haven't really like lost in court, I'm always terrified of the possibility of a loss. And talking to fathers that are dealing with custody battles, they all feel the same way. And while there's all these programs in place, there's actually nothing in place for how to deal with that in between period of one case to the next. And if you're a person that goes every year, like literally every year, multiple times a year, it can be very heavy upon your heart and your mind and your chest, which in turn, I think, makes you not the best parent or in the best position to be able to be a parent, a brother, you know, a son, or whoever you are, whatever role or hat you wear, because you're dealing with that weight, you know, and I got multiple types of weight coming upon me. And so I just realized, like, cause like last year I really had a moment where I was really like resentful of him and, you know, and other people, because I was like, I'm giving him everything and he just has like a great life. I mean, like just has everything he wants. And yet I'm still having to battle when I know so many fathers that are neglecting their kids, and like, and I still get blown away that I have to battle over that. Then I get blown away that he keeps getting put in these positions and I can't really get him out of those positions, just try to take care of my side. And that's not enough. And then he is still trying to protect mom, even when things get done to him. And the therapist kind of helped me out. Me, the therapist, even though the therapist is for him, the therapist had some conversations with me individually to where he had to give me some new clarity. He was telling me that you may think like you're doing something, but sometimes like it'll be the parent that's not like, that's neglecting them or that's abandoning them or just doing different things. And the child will still try to do everything in their power to gravitate towards that parent, trying to get their acceptance in a sense, versus, you know, maybe being thankful or grateful that they have this parent that's there for them consistently. And so I had to have somebody tell me that, because I couldn't understand why he like, you know, hide things that happens to him or try to protect her in all those different ways when she's, when I'm the one providing steadily. And so I couldn't really understand that until the therapist helped me with that. And so I started to resent him a little bit because I just couldn't understand why he wouldn't be grateful, because I'm so grateful for like the amazing mom that I had. And I'm really close with her now. So I'm still working through those like feelings, even though it's a lot better. So I think just getting that clarity from a therapist. Also, I'm not mentioned the village before. Like I have elders that I can call, I can cry on the phone with, you know, I can curse and go off. I can do like whatever I need to do. I can talk to those elders. Like Phil White, he does the fatherhood programs, and he and I talk, you know, very often. And he's helped me to mature as a father. He's been my shoulder that I can cry on. He's come to court with me as a witness. You know, he sat in the hallways to embrace me when the outcome happens. And so we need people like that in our lives, elders as well as peers, you know, but those elders can give you just the insight that I need. You know, there's times that I call him and I'm ready to like go off and just say, forget everything. And after I finish talking to him, I'm back down to normal and I'm assessing things in a more mature way. And so having 4 or 5 Phil Whites, as well as your peers, and as well as your faith as a foundation, you know, and continue to get educated. Like my job, I take all types of sorts of trainings. And so the education piece has been very beneficial to me, because I can recall certain things and I can apply them into my life, as well as, you know, help the other foster kids that I help.
Vincent, I really appreciate you highlighting the trauma, not just from our personal lives, but also the trauma we're exposed to in our professional work, and how a combination of all those things can, like you said, really be heavy carrying around. And that, like you said, for you, what you can identify needing now is really maybe seeking your own therapist to really navigate the traumatic experience of going through that process of legal, you know, gaining custody, and even how that impacts you on a level of bringing home some of the exposure that some of the trauma that you're exposed to professionally. So I really appreciate you highlighting and talking so open and explicitly to what that looks like and how it has impacted you, and how therapy from your son's therapist has helped, and how you would like to continue seeking your own support through your own therapist. So thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you, Sandra, for sharing what you need today. Before we go to our last question, is there anyone else that might want to share what they feel like they need, what type of support they need today, whether personally or professionally?
And I think we just all need it. I think it's so simple, but also like really powerful and healing, is self-care. Mm-hmm. As parents, our focus is always our kids, or always our jobs, or like so many different things. And then like we start feeling that resentment, we start feeling that frustration, we start feeling overwhelmed, but like we don't have an outlet. right? I mean, some of us have a good village, but also then we get to the point where like, well, they have things going, you know, we're always thinking about other people and what they're going through and how busy they are. So a lot of times we forget about ourselves, that we need to take care of ourselves too, right? We need to be our best, show up as our best selves. So in order to do that, like we have to take time to take care of us. And like, I'm so sorry for, you know, we've all experienced loss, but, you know, to have loss so close is so difficult. And I just think even like we were all saying, therapy has really helped me. I just started this year. And I think it's just healing to, there's a lot of healing and vulnerability. And we don't oftentimes have moments, I think, especially men don't have like, it's not so easy for them to be vulnerable. Or I know it's not easy for me to be vulnerable. So it's very difficult for me to really talk in depth about my feelings. So, you know, it just kind of leaves like this safe space for me to be able to just kind of pour out the way I need to.
So can I just add one more thing before we move forward? And so like, so one, everybody's saying all the things, right? You need a good support system, a good village, a good community. You need self-care. I was just about to say that right before Chris stepped in, and they said it perfectly. You need spaces. You need spaces where you're not a parent. You know what I mean? You need like have your own thing. You got to have your own thing. All right. You can't be a parent 24/7. You're gonna get exhausted. You know, I tell people all the time, fatherhood is my love language. But even I need some time away from the kids where I can just be an adult or just, you know, or just chill or whatever. So, but the one thing I want to talk about real quick and just add to this is that everyone said therapy, which I'm a huge proponent for. I have a therapist, my wife has a therapist, my daughter has a therapist, we do family therapy, couples counseling. I'm very, very pro therapy. Like I'm not, we don't play no games around here, Olivia. Everybody's got a therapist, but listen, therapy is not all puppies, rainbows, and hugs at the end of every session. It is a lot. It is a lot. It is very heavy. Initially, when you're unpacking all this trauma, if you got a good therapist, they're gonna read you. They're gonna tell you about yourself and where you need to fix and what you need to fix and where you went wrong. Your therapist is not just gonna put a band-aid on it and pat you on the back every time. It is not just people go into therapy looking for a therapist and they think, oh, once I get a therapist, everything will be fine. That is not how it works. It is a lot of work, but you are working with a professional who has all the tools and resources to help you heal. But healing, just like a scar, is a very tumultuous process. It's gonna hurt for a little while before it scabs over. It's gonna take some time. So don't go into therapy thinking that it's just gonna be like all one and done, or after a few sessions, I'm gonna feel great, or I'm gonna leave from this session feeling fantastic, because you may not initially. And finding a good therapist takes time. I had totally given up on therapy the first couple of times that I was seeking out one. I had this old white man who was not, you know what I mean, he was not a good fit for me. All right, he was not a good fit for me. And so I was like, oh, this is what therapy is? I'm done. I'm never doing this ever again. But that wasn't the case. You know what I mean? Like I needed to find, it's just like finding a lover, right? Being in a relationship. You got to find somebody who works for you. You got to find somebody who fits you. Finding a therapist is the exact same way, right? So you may not get it right your first therapist, right? They may not be a good fit for you. But if that's the case, go back on the hunt. All right, get back in the scene. All right, there's no Tinder for it or nothing like that, but you got to go back out there, put yourself back out there and find somebody that works for you. And that can be a process as well. I have a great relationship with my therapist now, but she is like the 5th or 6th therapist that I've gone to. But we communicate really well. And she tells me things in a way that like allows me to process. I personally need somebody who was very stern, who was going to be like, no, you effed up, you probably should go back and fix that. I needed somebody who was going to be very brash, very like very straightforward with me. And so it took me a while to find the person that fit. So you have to find a therapist that fits for you, and that can be quite a journey, but don't give up on that.
I approve that message as a therapist and someone who has gone to therapy myself. And so thank you so much for that. I can recall my very first time going to therapy. I left there, I was like, I don't want to go back. I don't like it. I left feeling more angry than I did when I went. And so I approved that message, but again, it was the beginning. And I had to allow that process to go. And I even had to question, this therapist was someone who was that brash and straight up. And I was like, I'm sensitive. I don't want that. But it was actually what I truly needed because I wanted sensitivity. And clearly I needed that the straight, direct, a little in your face approach. And it helped. But again, to Douglas Roscoe's point, you have to find what works best for you. And if it doesn't, it's a trial and error, just like we all said parenting is. It's you're building relationships even with your own child. And even those of you who choose to seek therapy, it is trial and error, and you have to go through that process of relationship development. And so we have exceeded our time. And as we close, I just want to allow you all to have final words to share with our viewers, to share with our community, our families, and our friends who are tuning into us today. What is a piece of advice that you would share with a parent or a caregiver who doesn't know where to start in terms of in the area of healing, starting their healing journey as a parent or caregiver? One piece of advice.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. And even if you have to ask the social worker at the school, your child's social worker inside the school for a resource, but don't be afraid to ask for help.
I would say be real with yourself, or be transparent with yourself first, as in like see what are the issues that you have, what are the things that bother you, what are the things that you need to work on, whatever that may be. Just first of all, like get past the pride and all the other stuff, like be real, be transparent with yourself so that you can see what are the issues or the things that need to be addressed. That's the first step, no denial, and all, like get past all of that. And once you can, if there's a list of 20 things, if there's 5 things, whatever you have, now you can start to take steps to go forward to, work on those things. I just keep it as simple as that.
I would say, like I said earlier, be patient and give yourself grace. You don't have all the answers, but none of us do.
And because we don't have all the answers, forgive yourself. You're not going to get it right all the time. So don't be too hard on yourself. I mean, we all going to make some mistakes in the parenting journey and the caregiver journey. You forgive yourself and you do better moving forward.
I'll say, don't be too hard on yourself. Most of the time we dealing with trauma, we be hard on ourselves, trying to be, perfect, trying to be perfect. So I'll say, don't be hard on yourself, and identify what it is that you're going through, so you can get help on what you need.
And I would just piggyback on just that patience part. When we are frustrated, take a step back. Like that may not be the best time to discipline. It may not be the best time to have a conversation. Because again, we're adults, but we make the same mistake that kids make, right? We're just big kids at the end of the day. So like the same things that we get frustrated with our kids about, we do those things. So like really just kind of take a step back and kind of just remember what it feels like to be spoken to a certain kind of way, or to not be heard, or to not feel like you can even have a safe space with your own parents. So and just try to really get to know your kids and what's the best style of communication that's going to work for you and them. Like you want to have a relationship with your kids, right?
Absolutely. Thank you all so very much. This has been a powerful, powerful, powerful conversation. And I felt every emotion, every expression of your feelings. I felt your energy. And I can only imagine how those who have been tuning in have been blessed by this conversation. And so I just honor each and every one of you. I thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to moderate you all through this conversation. We have come to the conclusion of our conversation. I just want to thank the GRTICN, the Greater Richmond Trauma Informed Community Network, for just creating Resilience Week, and just the opportunity for us to have this conversation to celebrate resilience as we, navigate our healing journey. Thank you to all those who tune in, and we wish each and every one of you well as you either begin, as you start your healing journey, and wishing you well as you continue the journey of healing. And just know that it is not easy, but it is so worth the work. And so with that, I bid you all a good night. We thank you. And we hope to talk. We hope to be in contact with you again. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.